Hello there, Krita users and visitors. When we start in digital painting, we see that we have available tons, hundreds, thousands of brushes. At the end of the video, you will have a good customized tag with all the brushes you need to create your digital artwork. I will show you little examples of what you can do with them. I hope you like it. So are you ready? Prepare your brushes, open Krita, and stay with me, because here we go.
How do you create a sphere in a fast way in Krita? Well, you can start painting, shading with an airbrush, or you can select a darker color, lighter color, and do this. Done! It's amazing. We are using the gradient alternating mode to create this fake illumination. We are using the radial mode to create this effect. But this is looking too much detail, so how we can add a bit of painterly effect? Let me show you a brush that I use not too often, but in this case it will be pretty useful. If I go to the all, go down, you can see the blender rake. Pretty interesting because it can create this painterly effect. I can move light to dark or dark to light, and in just a couple of seconds I have this feeling of painted sphere in Krita. But if I remove the selection, you can see it's perfect. So now I apply some brush strokes and you can see how this looks more painterly effect. But you have saved time using the gradient. Isn't it cool? And the final touches, and you have a smiling ball. Now let me show you a really interesting trick with shape fill, because imagine I want to create a mountain, and as you can see here, in a simple movement I am creating a big shape, right? I can create another rocks like here, maybe Inkscape logo. Hello guys. Then I'm going to use this as a clipping group, so Ctrl+Shift+G, and then I have my mask layer. So I'm gonna just creating the lighting area, will be wherever you want. Having this as a silhouette, I want to create a clipping group from this. Then I need to press Ctrl+Shift+G again and activate the upper layer, the clipping group, and deactivate the mask layer below. And then I can just select a lighter color and I will be clipping only inside the shapes. Isn't it cool? So you can create nested clipping groups inside Krita that way. We can move the different parts. I hope you like this trick. Just let me know if you use it. So how this brush works, because it's a bit tricky at first. If I make a stroke and keep press and go backwards, I can delete the area that I am subtracting. I need to create like a wing. So in a simple movement like this, I have created a wing. And remember, we can Ctrl+Shift+G, and now we are just using this as a clipping group. So now I can modify and add in some details, and automatically this seems more interesting. And if you don't want to use the symmetry for the moment, you can deactivate, and then you are altering just this little part. Then come back to symmetry, and done. It will be like study for another Michael Bay Transformers. For this exercise, I'm going to be using this brush, the dry texture creases. So I'm going to be using the lower pressure area of the brush stroke, because as you can see here, when I press with very low pressure, I can create all the texture. And if you want to make it this more extreme, you can just emphasize this area on also removing some of the strength, and now you see the effect. And also remember, I have the pattern scale here. You can see the size is quite smaller, or I can make it bigger. I make it bigger, for example, in this area to create this type of scrambling effect that comes from pastel, or maybe bigger texture but not too detailed. Okay, and this is pretty good because we can combine really fast, adding texture really fast. And the combo comes right now because if I select this brush and increase the pattern scale to 4 using this multiply by 2, then you can see that if I go here and put this lower and just select this and rotate 90 degrees, I can also rotate here, remember? Now I can integrate the finer detail of my texture. So as you can see here, I cannot be using this, it's too much for the another scale of the texture. But now the scale fits perfectly and they can be combined really fast. It can be also be used for the background, so you can combine these two brushes really well. And remember, we are not using the random offset. So when I make a dark texture here, if I select a lighter color, I go inside, but the area is not changing, right? So I can create lighting effects like corroded parts in the texture. We're gonna create something interesting in the middle. I'm gonna create the main character. So with low pressure, I can just create the base. High pressure make it opaque. So I create the base. I'm using this, and this one. I need to create the volume here. So I increase here texture scale because I need to create groups of paint like scampling. And now if I want to create little details of texture, I can use another brush to fill gaps here if I want. And this is how we can create textures, very rough textures. I don't know if you like this style, so please let me know in the comments. And if the texture is too rough, you can use the Blender Basic, and in the smudge length, just move the smudge length to 30, make like light pass over here, and you will see how this is more natural blended. And that's it. And that is how we can create creepy textures. Now let me show you an interesting trick with this brush called texture spines. As you can see, when I make a brush stroke like this, maybe you can get some ideas how to use it, but the trick here is just to increase the size and create strokes like this, and automatically you're gonna see some shapes created by this brush stroke. If I make a square selection, you can see how I can create just small brush strokes and automatically some shapes appear. The trick here is not use this as a finished thing, but select another brush, and now I select what I want. So let me put this background in another color, maybe just something like this. I'm gonna start painting with a lighter tone. You can go in diagonal like this. So now I'm gonna be painting and I'm gonna be creating the shapes that I want to emphasize. So look at how fast I can create rocks, because I am deciding what is interesting for me or is not interesting, or I can discard. And that way I don't need to be thinking about all these shapes on my mind. Imagine you are tired after 8 hours of hard work and you need to start to think about how to create rocks. And if you want to make it faster, just make it bigger and select bigger areas. So now you are creating a focal point in here because there are more contrast and smaller shapes that create contrast too. And the good thing is that you have this in a separate layer, so you can refine, delete, whatever you want. Painting with not a full opaque, just leaving this transparency effect, and that way you save a lot of time. I'm gonna be creating the volume effect, and now you will be adding some light coming from here. So basically we are adding light on the left, so we are taking into account the volume of the rock. As you can see here is some type of light. Of course we can add some shadows here and put this into multiply, and we will have more volume. Sometimes I want to add more texture, more micro texture to my rocks, so I use this texture big brush, but put this into new layer and put this in overlay. So that way I can make a lighter texture or I can make darker texture, and also I can change the hue, so I could be combining the effect and I could be using also the opacity. So if you like it as it is, perfect. And as you can see here, the texture is not too focused, so we can focus the texture even more if we go to the filter, enhance, use the unsharp mask, and now we apply the radius and amount. Then you decide if this fits your needs and create filter mask to make it editable, so now it's non-destructive. And you can also even paint with black color and remove the texture for wherever you need, or recover the texture with white. And now let's paint some vegetation. I'm gonna be using the stamp leaves with the darkest color of the palette, and I'm gonna create a shape. Whatever shape is gonna be working, I'm gonna select the middle color. I need the preserve alpha to protect the silhouette, and we can use little touches, less pressure. And then we go to the lighter part and same operation. And normally when we are painting trees in nature, we have a blue sky behind them. And you see now is more natural. You see that we have some blues here reflecting the color. Remember the video, the Rakuris video, we have also good brushes for nature there. And now little touches to create a bit more volume, recover some areas if you need. And now imagine I want to plant here some bushes like you see on the picture. I'm gonna use these with the darkest color, and this create like a shadow area here and there. I'm gonna just change this. And one thing that I like to do is just to get this brush, reduce the size, and start to just move things upwards and change the angle. So that way it's a very fast way to create this more large vegetation. And then I select the stylized tree and select the darker, and this will be the base. And I'm going to be using these like little touches, not create brush strokes, like little touches, stamp. So we apply like this. This probably we have some light around here, and we have some light here, and this is in shadow. We make it cooler in daylight. And to finish, remember we need to just change a bit, adding some touches, breaking the edges, and done. Sometimes we need to create galaxies, so we need to create stars. Fill the square and go to the lighter blue, create a new layer and create stars. And you see maybe it's a bit slow if we want to fill the universe. So let's go to the spray area and increase the density. Now you see that if I keep press is faster. And now I'm gonna be painting cosmic dust. So I'm gonna select blue and move the flow until 10%, and you can see the effect. and start to play with different colors, maybe blue, and the mixes obtained are really interesting. I need more stars. I select the star field and then go here, brush tip, and increase the size. So we create a new layer and we put stars here and there. I go outside for a bit and select stars, sparkles, and you can see by default is quite cool because it's making this photographic effect. And if you want to have more vibrance of color, you can go to the last area and duplicate, remove the opacity, you can blur, you can increase the flow in the texture big and start to play maybe red from here to here. So it's pretty easy to create a universe with default brushes. I hope you like it. And if we want to create a glow effect, maybe more dramatic, we can just duplicate this layer and just go here to the filter, blur, Gaussian blur, just something like this. Put this into screen and you will have the result. So you control the amount of stars and also the dust on the space. And if you want to go deeper, you can just start to activate the curves modification. So we select the layer that we want to modify, go to the filter, adjust, and go to color adjustment curves. So we can increase the contrast, just creating an S. And also remember, we can just go to the color channels and, for example, remove green or adding in some areas. Pretty different image in terms of color. Create a filter mask.
And as the final touch, I'm going to use a filter layer, which will be affecting everything, just to increase the contrast. So I can increase the contrast between dark and lights. There we go. You have your galaxy. Isn't it cool?
Now let me show you how can I use this brush. So I increase the size just around this. If I make soft brush stroke and I continue with the same pressure, you can see that now it's opaque. So I have lost all my texture. So let's see how I can fix that. I remove the opacity and I put this into a more sensitive way for the flow. So now goes incremental and the pencil behaves much better. But we can go farther because I can control the sharpness and activating and use the softness, not too much. You can see right here is disappearing a bit. So that means I have rougher effect. And this for me is much better for shading because it keeps the pencil effect. For example, I use this type of adjustment to create this type of portrait. So you can see here the grain fits pretty well, and it's because I'm using the same adjustments.
Thanks a lot for coming and watch the entire video. As you can see, we have seen a lot of different ways how to use brushes in digital painting. So if you have enjoyed, if you have learned something useful for you, consider to subscribe and leave a comment, because I read all the comments. I answer personally all the comments, so don't be shy. And remember, you have a lot of more contents here in the channel, so you can enjoy, you can learn, you can understand Krita better. So check it out. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.